In today's rant, I want to talk about the Orsini family, one of the true bloodlines of the Zoroastrian papal bloodlines. The Orsini family was one of the most influential Italian noble families that included 5 popes, 34 Roman Catholic cardinals, and other political and religious figures. According to their own family legend, they descend from the Julio-Claudian dynasty, which included Caligula and Nero. If you know anything about this dynasty, they were self-proclaimed psychopaths who murdered people and ruled with violence. Caligula was the great-great-grandson of Julius Caesar, and his brother was Nero. If you listened to my last rant, I discussed how I believe Nero could be the Antichrist in the book of Revelations. His other brother, Tiberius, was accused by their own mother of murdering their father, Germanicus. These men were the epitome of evil and ruled as such. The Orsini family also had a long feud with the House of Colonna until the mid-1500s when they reconciled and joined forces, if you believe the timeline. But as I was researching the Orsini family bloodline, I realized that members of this family were called, quote, Podestas. Podesta was the holder of the highest civil office in the government of the cities in northern and central Italy in the Middle Ages. And of course, we are familiar with the names Tony Podesta and John Podesta. Makes you wonder if these Podestas are even real people or just codes for their power. Tony and John Podesta have remained untouched and are most likely descendants of the Rockefellers. And what I find most interesting about the Orsini bloodline is that they have spawned some other familiar names within the Black nobility families, like House of Torlonia, who are the Vatican treasury family, the Gaetanis, who have complex connections to the Trump family, the Gravinos, the Borgias, and they have married with the Rothschilds. It has been written that the Orsini family goes back even farther, back to the Duke of Alba. And it makes me think of Jessica Alba, who is treated like royalty in Hollywood. She's not the best actress. And whether it is her real name or if she is just part of the bloodline, I do think these people are chosen or given these names as symbols. And we know that the Black Pope is currently Arturo Sosa. And he's nicknamed the Black Pope because he oversees the Society of Jesus, otherwise known as the Jesuits. And they wear all black. And they practice black magic. Other Black popes include surnames of Borgia, Visconti, Ricci, and Nicholas, who all descend from the House of Orsini. Now, the Jesuits, who are basically a secret Babylonian death cult, oversee HARP, DARPA, and are in control of the depopulation transhumanist agenda that is happening today. Now, I have struggled with my thoughts on the actual existence of the Gray Pope. And I have wondered if this person even really exists, or if it's just a name to explain the true power that is the House of Orsini. And the Gray Pope is all over conspiracy internet. So if you Google Gray Pope, the results you get all over are Pepe Orsini, which is interesting. But if this person actually exists and allegedly has the most power in the world, and if they are the true descendant of the Lucifer bloodline and half Nephilim hybrid, like all the conspiracy websites say, then what the fuck? I have a hard time believing whoever wrote these blogs or websites truly knows this, but maybe they do. Conspiracy websites say that the Orsini family is actually the Maximus clan who oversees the Jesuits and is the true power in this world, along with other Black nobility families such as Breakspear, Aldobrandini, Farnese, and Somalia. Now, what's interesting about these families is that the Breakspear family resides in China, and Bob Marley had a child with Cindy Breakspear from House of Breakspear. So we know that the Aldobrandinis still exist today, and they intermarried with the Rothschilds, which is how the Rothschilds actually acquired their wealth, power, and control as a front for the Black nobility. We know that the Farnese family established the first Jesuit church, and the Farnese descendant is Prince Carlo, House of Bourbon, who oversees the Pope and the Vatican today, right now. And he was a member of Mar-a-Lago. He might still be. So there are things that we can prove through research, just a little bit of research of what is out there. But there really is not a way to prove that the Gray Pope exists. So is this Gray Pope entity a real person, or is it a group? Now, these are the things I ask myself. And then I think of Ascended Masters, and if you read my book, Synarchy, I really get into Helena Blavatsky and Crowley and, where their power comes from. And it's this ascended ritual magic. And one thing that hasn't steered me wrong the whole time I have been awake to all of this is believing the opposite of what is actually presented to me. The media, who claims to be the real news, is in fact all lies. The church, who claims to be holy, is actually just performing ancient Druid rituals. Children's foundations tend to be hubs for child trafficking. Modeling agencies tend to be operations for elite prostitution. And this is all obvious by now. And if you've ever had that feeling that something is just not quite right in the world, it's probably all of this combined. And if you take a step further, when you know someone is a member of the Knights of Columbus or the Knights of Malta, it is very obvious to me that they are a puppet for the cabal, whether they even know it or not. But Jeb Bush is a member of Knights of Columbus. Like, so many men are members of these groups. So they are born into this life. So researching the Orsini family of today, I discovered that Isabella Orsini is an Italian actress married to a Belgian prince. And I was able to connect the Orsini family to the Rosenbergs, who trafficked ecstasy in the United States, but nothing that could trace me to the Great Pope. So, of course, drug trafficking ring. Another interesting person I discovered in my research was a man by the name of Ciro Orsini. Now, Ciro Orsini was born in 1965 and is a descendant of the House of Orsini. He was born in Naples, Italy, and after doing a Google image search on his name, I discovered pictures of him with Bill Clinton, Sylvester Stallone, who films dolphin porn, with celebrities and models, Patrick Swayze, Tom Hanks, Charlie Sheen, Ronald Reagan, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of England. And then I discovered all of these photos were taken at his restaurant in London, Ciro Orsini's restaurant. The restaurant is called Ciro's Pomodoro of Knightsbridge, and the logo is a tomato. So when I discovered this and remembered my dream about the Black Pope and the nightclub I went into with the tomato, I freaked out. Now, is this a coincidence? Was this a download? Was this a clue driven out of my own subconscious? I have no idea. So I continued on with my research of this restaurant with the tomato logo. And if you read the About Us section of Ciro's Pomodoro restaurant, it says, the backbone of the operation are the Coppola brothers, who are Ciro's nephews. Okay, Coppola. Where have we heard that name before? So I knew Coppola, Hollywood family owned wines, like the Francis Ford Coppola wines. And we know that Francis Ford Coppola directed the Godfather movies, which is all about the Sicilian mafia and its origins. And we know that Nicolas Cage is a nephew of Coppola. Interesting. So the website continues to say, Ciro's Pomodoro is expanding worldwide and beyond. So if you hear that Ciro's Pomodoro is opening on the moon, please remember our motto: expect the unexpected. Before we discuss the man, just a little information concerning the name Orsini. If we tell you that 12 Orsini men married 12 daughters of kings and emperors, you might slightly begin to understand this man. And okay, so he's obviously claiming his name as an Orsini. So anyway, the family heritage of the Orsinis, they were one of the most influential Italian noble families in medieval Italy. Members of the Orsini family included 5 popes, 18 saints, 40 cardinals, and numerous significant political and religious figures. The family can be traced back to the Middle Ages and goes as far back as the Roman period. So the bloodline is very long and very strong. And then it shows a picture of Ciro with Stevie Wonder, who I even question if he's even blind. Now, there's a video of Stevie Wonder catching a microphone before it falls on the ground right in front of him. You'll probably find that on YouTube. So he's shaking hands with Stevie Wonder, and the website continues to list their 3 mottos. End quote. Says, and please don't forget the main 3 Ciro Pomodoro mottos. We don't just make the difference, we create the difference. We work globally. Never forget to expect the unexpected. So then I started digging on this Ciro character. Did he bring celebrity to his restaurant because he had connections to Coppola, or because he himself was an Orsini? And that was the next question I wanted to answer. So come to find out, this Ciro guy is involved in many charities, go figure, listed on his restaurant website. And they are Football for Peace, Florida Disaster Relief for Hurricanes, City for Peace, and he works alongside Italian actor Armand Assante on the Homeless Worldwide Foundation. So below the charities are pictures of Ciro with Ozzy Osbourne, Phil Collins, Johnny Depp, Clint Eastwood, Axl Rose, Rod Stewart, Leonardo DiCaprio, and all of the celebrity puppets. And after I discovered the Homeless Worldwide Foundation, it took me down a rabbit hole to a website called Rainbow Collection Wines. Now, this company is owned by Ciro Orsini, Armand Assante, and the Torti family, and this business has been operating since 1910. Now, this rainbow wine is anti-aging due to the amount of resveratrol in it. Now, what's even crazier is that whenever I would watch the movie Eyes Wide Shut, which I just watched recently, I would always remember the rainbow theme in the film and wondered the significance of it. Now, I'm going to get into Eyes Wide Shut, but I'm not going to get into the esoteric stuff that has been done so many times by so many people. So I'm just going to give my 2 cents on Eyes Wide Shut. So, like I was saying, I have seen Eyes Wide Shut so many times. It's actually one of my favorite movies, and I'm always looking for new clues, and I always see something different every time I watch it. And the last time I watched it, I was inspired to learn about the masks in the film. And come to find out that the most prominent mask used in the film was the Venetian black nobility mask called the Columbine. Yes, it's actually called a Columbine. And watching the movie, it made me want to research sex rituals and underground cults. That still could exist today, but nothing was coming to me. So I put the idea to the side. Well, while I was down the rabbit hole with Ciro Orsini, I also discovered that he owns a company called the Knights of St. Francis, which happens to be a secret society VIP club that hosts Eyes Wide Shut style parties. I also discovered that Ciro Orsini spent time in Hollywood as a casting director and had connections to model agencies. So he is obviously recruiting and paying these women to play with his guests. Now, if you go to knightsofstfrancis.com, you can see their logo and read about their history. And the logo is literally a pyramid with an eye in it. And it reads, quote, Our story dates back to 1746 when Sir Francis Dashwood began a very exclusive club for the social elite. It was officially known as the Knights of St. Francis, otherwise known as the Hellfire Club. This name was bestowed upon this secret club by critics of Sir Francis and his followers. The history of the Hellfire Club dates back to the 1700s, when it was originally a British secret society designed for high-standing individuals of a certain persuasion. Members included the social elite and had many famous attendees, including Lord Sandwich, who documented his membership of the secret club. The purpose of the club was to provide a place for fun, for like-minded, intelligent people who wanted a place to be themselves. It is believed they encouraged behaviors that were considered hedonistic at the time and was strictly invite only. The club was closed by royal edict, where among the motivations was how the club's members did. They would corrupt the minds and morals of one another. Each member was entitled to bring along a guest if he was inclined to do so of a particular social standing. In the 1700s, invitations were sent by the prior, and costumes were required to be worn by attendees. These meetings were recorded in 1779 in a book called Nocturnal Reveals. Okay, so that's on the website of Ciro Orsini's sex club. So I saw that the age demographic is 18 to 45, and if you are older than 40, you must be invited and you have to look good. They also say, quote, the younger, the better. And just like Eyes Wide Shut, you must have a password to enter. And if you look at the photography on the website, it shows pictures from the movie Eyes Wide Shut, shows naked women in Venetian masks, bondage scenes, S&M, orgies. The promo video is 2 minutes long, entitled The Greatest Part on Earth, which basically just looks like softcore porn. And they also have an Instagram page called NOSF Official. And you can see what they're all about there. Now, this led me to other secret sex clubs, and one is called Heaven's Circle, which is also connected to the Orsini family. Now, there isn't much on the internet about it, but Google called it the #1 elite sex club in the world. And another one I found is called Sanctum, which is actually the acronym SNCTM. And this is located in Hollywood. I'm sure most of you have heard about this one by now. But their logo looks like a teardrop with a pyramid and an eye inside. And their photos show the same thing: S&M, blindfolds, whips, and kink. Sanctum's website says, quote, the club exists to serve the social and entertainment needs of our members and guests by maintaining the highest standards of excellence in all endeavors, by providing creative and culturally rich programs, and by providing a safe and comfortable environment for personal exploration. So, of course, I did research to figure out who is a member of this club, and it's definitely secret, but a few names leaked out, and 2 of them were Gwyneth Paltrow and Bill Maher. Now, you must apply to become a member and pay a decent amount of cash to join. And this club also has locations in Miami and Russia. They also have a jewelry boutique called Oculus Dei, which I believe is a play on words of Opus Dei. And Opus Dei is a Roman Catholic organization headquartered in Rome, Italy. And Opus Dei means work of God. And just like the Jesuits, I can't help but think there is something sinister with Opus Dei. And there's not a lot of information about Opus Dei, but Opus Dei has been accused of aggressive recruiting for young men to become priests, and they've been accused of love bombing, which I found to be very interesting. It's an extreme form of flattery and also a type of manipulative abuse. Opus Dei has been described as Christian Freemasonry, being intensely secretive, and they have been called, quote, the Holy Mafia. And what's strange is you really can't find much about Opus Dei, but I've discovered that the Jesuits seem to say negative things about Opus Dei. But from what I've also researched, the Jesuits seem to be the left wing of the dragon, and Opus Dei is the right wing of the dragon. So really, I believe that they operate together with the Vatican. There's no question in my mind. They are basically the same thing, just like Democrat, Republican. So if you Google members of Opus Dei, you will find the organization is connected to many corporations and banks worldwide, including the Vatican Bank and banks in European countries. Members are mostly Spanish, involving bullfighters, which also tie into the Francoist movement in Spain. I'm not going to get into the Francoist movement, but that's a whole other topic. And Spanish culture consists of bullfighting. So this is all connected. And Spanish culture, that goes back to the Spanish House of Bourbon and King Felipe, who was connected to child trafficking during the Trump administration, which I talked about on the Black Pill podcast. The only other thing I could find were the Dan Brown novels, otherwise known as the Da Vinci Code. And the Da Vinci Code implied that Opus Dei are a bunch of monks who drug and murder people, who are focused on gaining wealth and power. Well, that doesn't seem very far-fetched, now does it? But what I find most coincidental is that the movie starred Tom Hanks and was directed by Ron Howard, who happened to be mentored by Francis Ford Coppola. Ron Howard has been reported to have visited the secret Fortsman Little conferences in Aspen, Colorado, along with Henry Kissinger and the Rothschilds. So who is Ron Howard really? And of course, we know everything about Tom Hanks that we need to know. Other famous people who attended the Fortsman Little conferences ever since 1989, I was able to find were Jeff Bezos, Christine Amanpour, who was BFF with JFK Jr., Lance Armstrong, Sheryl Crow, and those two were married for a short time. Joe Biden, Michael Bloomberg, Tom Brokaw, Conrad Black, who was the newspaper mogul, Jeb Bush, who's a Knights of Columbus, Dick and Lynn Cheney, who are total psychopaths, Bill Clinton, enough said, Newt Gingrich, total shill, Peter Jennings, George Lucas, Nelson Mandela, Andrea Mitchell, media shill, Les Moonves, pedophile, Martha Stewart, Oprah, and Sidney Pollack, who starred in Eyes Wide Shut. Now, another sex club in London is called the Karma Sanctum Soho, where they allegedly practice MK Ultra programming rituals and perform sex acts for pay. They also have an Instagram page. And I have heard that the American Beauty actress Mina Savari made her money as a sex worker for these elites after she quit acting. And I actually think this is how many of these so-called A-list celebrities make all of their money. They just pimp themselves out, and yachting. And that's actually how Meghan Markle met Prince Harry, I believe was on a yacht. Now, another sex club is called Killing Kittens, and it's based in London, which was launched in 2005. Club 33, which I'm sure most of you have heard of by now, launched in Anaheim in Disneyland and is the only place at Disney that serves alcohol and is rumored to be a hub of sex trafficking, elite prostitution, and a sex club. And we've all seen the famous picture of Britney Spears with the Club 33 cake. Okay, these are signals, but I'm sure you know that. And other sex clubs include the Carlton Clubs, the Navy Club, Gemini and Scorpio in New York City, Chicks with Knives, which was rumored to be a cannibal club in LA, the Fairfax Club, Skull and Bones, and of course, Bohemian Grove. So when I think of the movie Eyes Wide Shut and the fact that Tom Cruise ended up at a mansion sex party, needed a password to enter, happened to witness sex rituals, and was threatened to be killed if he spoke, speaks volumes to what Kubrick was trying to tell us. He clearly was exposing some of the elite secrets with the existence of the Knights of St. Francis, run by a descendant of the Orsinis. So, Knights of St. Francis was originally funded by a prince, which on the website says, shall go unnamed. So, who was this mystery prince who funded Knights of St. Francis Sex Club? We will probably never know. But I would guess it was probably Prince Charles, Prince Philip. I think this goes back to London. I think this goes back to England. I think it goes back to the Windsors. So if I had to make an educated guess, I would guess it was one of them. Prince Andrew, who knows? Most of the sex clubs that operate are in London. And Stanley Kubrick was dead 6 days after making final edits to the movie Eyes Wide Shut. And they said that he died in his sleep and was found in his home in London. And later it was said that he died of a heart attack. But what's even more bizarre is that he personally chose Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman to star in this film. And we all know by now that Nicole Kidman's father, Anthony, was caught up in a sex scandal and major child sex abuse allegations in Australia. A whistleblower by the name Fiona Barnett accused Anthony Kidman of being a serial pedophile and claimed that Nicole Kidman was part of the sex ring until she turned 15. So is this Fiona Barnett legit? We will never know, but Anthony Kidman died mysteriously in Thailand right after this story broke, which is just fucking bizarre. So after some thought, I really don't believe Kubrick was fighting the Illuminati. I believe Kubrick was initiated into it. Okay, let me say that again. I believe Kubrick was the Illuminati. And we know this because he was financed so early on in his career. He went on to create 2001: Space Odyssey, which was just an amazing film for the time. And of course, we know he filmed the 1969 moon landing. We know this. I mean, how fucking ridiculous is the moon landing? So, okay, back in 1969, NASA allegedly filmed 3 men landing on the moon live on TV. And then later, NASA said they recorded over the footage. Get the fuck out. This story is a slap in the face. This story is an abomination. We never went to the moon. Anyway, so we have Kubrick directing the film The Shining, where he allegedly exposes the fact that he indeed filmed the Apollo moon landing. This is like a joke. I mean, just go back and watch The Shining. And there's been so many, videos on the internet that have broken this down, and they've done such a great job. And it's so obvious once you put all the pieces together. And then not to mention Kubrick's film Lolita, which was about pedophilia. And many of the characters in the film are wearing cat prints, which is a huge nod to Monarch programming. And I believe Jeffrey Epstein had numerous copies, or it was reported that Jeffrey Epstein had numerous copies of Lolita and always carried a copy with him. What the fuck is that about? Now, Stanley Kubrick also directed the 1959 film Spartacus, which was about the black nobility bloodline of Orsini, because we know that the Orsinis are descendants of Julius Caesar. Spartacus was deemed the, quote, gay movie of the century and became a symbol for gay culture. Now, I remember the movie Clueless, and Cher, Alicia Silverstone's character in the movie, had a big crush on this guy named Christian, and they had a so-called date night where he came over to her house in Beverly Hills and brought the movie Spartacus. And This was obviously a symbol like that he was gay, and her character had no idea that he was gay. Now, is it a coincidence that there was a London-based publication called Spartacus, and it was called the Gay Guide? Okay, this is not a coincidence. It's called the Spartacus International, and it was a guide for men having sex with young boys. Okay, this is like ancient Greek mythology. This is pedophilia. Go back and watch my Project Monarch video. When you look into every Kubrick movie, there is some sort of revelation of the method. And I could break down every movie. I'm not going to do that today, but I do think these conspiracy theorists have it all wrong with Kubrick. Not everything. I just think he was one of them. I don't think he died for exposing their secrets. I just think he died. He was a sick, sick man. And in the film Eyes Wide Shut, another mask that is worn by the guests of the elite party is called the domino mask. And this is another version of a Venetian mask of the black nobility. Now, is it a coincidence that the hooker Tom Cruise hooks up with, her name is Domino? The color purple is everywhere. The cloaks, the bed sheets, Domino's dress, not to mention there are tiger stuffed animals in the film. Maybe a nod to sex kitten programming. And I don't know if you noticed this tidbit, but one of the women Tom Cruise first meets introduces herself as a Windsor, which links the royals in this film, and it's pretty obvious. And I've also noticed that the naval officer that Nicole Kidman's character fantasizes about having the affair with, his uniform looks a lot like the uniform of L. Ron Hubbard when he was a naval officer. And we know that L. Ron Hubbard started the Church of Scientology. And we know that Tom Cruise is like the king of Scientology. Stanley Kubrick's daughter, Vivian, was a Scientologist and later went on to endorse QAnon and Alex Jones. And Vivian, just like her father, was initiated into the club. You cannot prove otherwise to me. So obvious.